I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We believe that voting is the basic right of everyone in a country, and we shouldn't be able to bar certain people just through a test that we don't know whether gonna help people or not, but we definitely know it's gonna make people harder to vote and make people less likely to vote. But before coming to that particular thing, we have to talk about the opening government. The opening government in this debate saying that people are voting randomly in this kind of situation because they are not knowledgeable enough, and then this kind of situation, people are complicit about this kind of situation, complicit about putting bad people in charges because they vote randomly because they are not knowledgeable in the end of the day. And then they say this, in this kind of situation, this test is needed in order to make sure people are knowledgeable, in order to make sure that they have a certain knowledge in this kind of election, and they will vote better in this kind of situation based on the government's analysis. And also in this kind of situation, they say that the benefit that people are gonna vote better because they will be more analytical and also objective in this kind of situation to assess policy and also data in the end of the day. The problem is that the government never explain on how likely people are gonna do this particular thing, how likely are gonna people analyze the data, learn more thing about the election, or will they actually prepare at all for the test, or will they just don't do the test and they don't vote at all because they just don't want to go through even more things in order to just vote in the end of the day. That is why we believe the open government never explained to us the likelihood on whether or not people are going to do this particular policy in the end of the day, whether or not people are going to be happy with this kind of situation in the end of the day. Now, coming to our argument, right? We have two particular arguments. Firstly is why the status quo is okay, and also the second thing is about do this test particularly help to these people to actually vote better in the end of the day. Coming to the first argument, why the status quo is okay. The government is trying to say that people who vote randomly are bad people, and with this kind of situation, people need to know certain knowledge in order to become more knowledgeable, and these tests are going to do those particular things in order to help them vote better in the end of the day. First thing first, we say that people are okay to vote whatever they want, whoever they want, as long the candidate is eligible by law, and that's okay for people to vote based on that because it's their right to vote, and there's no barring for people to actually vote anyone that they wanted because it's part of their basic right in a democracy. As a citizen, they are free to vote whoever they want. Therefore, we believe that the open government cannot just say that because people are voting badly and then we just can say that you shouldn't vote in this kind of situation. That's not the case because we don't know the certain parameters what is being said as good and what is being said as bad in this kind of situation. Now the second thing is that they say that the people are voting like this are complicitly putting bad people in charge. So this kind of test is the way in order to know what kind of bad politician or bad policy is bad and then shouldn't be voted by the people in the end of the day. The problem is that this test is gonna insinuate certain people, certain narrative, and certain policy as bad policy, bad narrative, and bad character in the end of the day. The government already given the example, right? For example, like people like Trump who won based on the narrative in the American election should not be voted because they are using narrative in the end of the day. This shows to you how this test is gonna look like because this test is gonna say that certain part narrative is bad, certain policy is bad, certain people are bad. This is not okay. The government or any neutral institution shouldn't be able to say that certain candidate is bad, certain policy is bad, and certain party is bad, and then being able to stop people that doesn't agree with those particular things. This is why we believe the test is very complicated and very problematic because this will put certain ideology or certain party or certain people in a situation that they will be seen as bad, and people have to see it as bad in order to vote in the end of the day. That's why we believe it is very complicated for the government to actually do this particular thing neutrally in the end of the day. Now the status quo, the problem with the people that are not knowledgeable, the problem is that not only because people just don't want to know or people just already swayed by this kind of politician. End of the day, the problem is there is many people who doesn't have access to the election. People doesn't have access on how they know about the policy, how they know about the party, how they know about this kind of politician in the end of the day. That is why we believe as a government it's our duty to give a platform and access to those particular things. What's the problem with the open government is that they are only giving tests so that they are pushing people to study, but they never explain on how they will create more accessibility and more platform for people to actually become more knowledgeable. For us, for the opposition, the problem is not based on people don't want to know, but also people that cannot know, not able or not having the access to actually know those particular things. This is why we believe we as the government have to give those particular platform in the first place in order to solve the people that are unknowledgeable in this kind of situation. And this kind of situation, we have to also cater to the people who doesn't want to vote because they don't care about the election and they think their vote doesn't matter anyway. This is how we should push for more, for example, accountability about the policy, because if the government really want a better policy, then it shouldn't be only about talking about which is the best policy, but also how the people to be able to see the policy being implemented. This is why people doesn't want to participate in an election in the end of the day, and this is where the government should step in and giving the platform to access this particular info and data, not just pushing people to learn by themselves. This is why we believe the status quo is okay, and even if there's problem about people not knowledgeable, the government is not giving the solution to this particular situation. Now, the second argument that we have to give is that do this particular test help? We say no, because the government never explain on what platform in order to people to become knowledgeable in this kind of situation. They only say that people will gonna study because they have a test in this kind of situation. This is why we believe the government is very problematic, because we never know how people will actually change after this particular thing. Test. We don't know if there's a lifelong a conservative or liberal we just switch side because of this particular test, because they have new knowledge or they have new perspective to this particular thing, or we don't know whether or not after the test, after they pass the test and will they change their voting situation in the end of the day. We say that people are gonna vote whatever they want, wherever they want after this kind of situation in the end of the day. Therefore, the policy given by the government is not helping the situation at all. Even if there's people who change, there's a problem that we need to address. Is the people from the underprivileged community and minorities or marginal communities in the end of the day. These people have to fight through many discrimination like voting ID, voting rights, and also having to fight the discrimination that maybe their places are very far away from voting ballots and so on and so forth. There's many things that I have to fight in order to vote in this kind of situation. And now we are giving them even more burden in order to just vote and get represented by this kind of situation. There are gonna be more people who not gonna be represented because people cannot be eligible in this kind of situation. In this kind of situation, there will be more people not voting, and then will be even more people not represented by the policy in another day. This is even worse policy and even worse election, because there is even fewer people deciding the future of the country when many people wants to vote but they cannot, and then people that don't want to vote is not given the incentive to actually vote, and then there's even more people who are not gonna vote in this kind of election in the end of the day. This is why we believe to create a better policy is not only about saying that people become knowledgeable, but also how people become knowledgeable. We have to give those platform and access in the end of the day. This is why we believe open government has failed to create those particular way to actually make that. Therefore, we believe that opposition should win this debate. Thank you very much.